No Rudy, no problem. Wolves throttled Denver in game 2, 106-80. We're breaking it all down. It's coming up next on the Locked On Wolves POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man in the flesh, Jack Borman, co-host of the Minnesota Basketball Party each and every Wednesday. He's on X, at JRBorman13. And Jack, before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monopoly Go. The new fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So don't go download Monopoly Go free on Google Play and the App Store. All right, buddy. Here we go. Game 2 in Denver. And the theme tonight, if I had to pick one, no Rudy, no problem. I mean, there were times out here, Jack, and we'll get into it all. It looked like the varsity versus JV squad out there, at least early on in this one. Wolves absolutely suffocating defense. They drove Denver nuts all night long. Wolves up 8 after the first quarter, but that was only the beginning. I mean, you named it. They crushed it. Turnovers, points off turnovers, fast break points, rebounding, any special team stat you could think of, the Wolves won it. They put the Nuggets in the spin cycle, man. It was second quarter domination, 33-15. Wolves go into the locker room with the 61-35 lead, 26-point advantage. In fact, Cat and Ant alone outscored Denver 36-35 in the first half. So second half we go. Wolves got the lead as high as 32 at one point. The Nuggets' largest deficit at home in the playoffs ever, all time. However, okay, Nuggets going to 8-0 run to end the third quarter. They're down 22 going into the fourth, but it was just more of the same. Too little, too late for Denver, and your Minnesota Timberwolves have just gone up 2-0 on the defending champs in their home building, no less, after this dominating 106-80 performance. So much to break down, Jack, but let's just start with your biggest takeaways and kind of your A topics first and foremost.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to Rudy Gobert and his girlfriend Julia, welcoming their first child, a baby boy, this morning here in Minneapolis. I think for me that the biggest thing has just got to be the way that this team set their tone with their defense, and it started there and it ended with Anthony Edwards getting MVP chants in Denver, and us hearing very loud Wolves in 4 chants in Denver. So all the credit in the world there, and then. I think they really just stuck with their game plan, which was awesome. They really sold out to take away the Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic pick and roll, and they let Aaron Gordon do pretty much whatever he wanted to in the first part of the game. He had 13 of the Nuggets' first 17 points after scoring just 9 points in game 1. So for him to come out that way, you thought, wow, this is a great sign for Denver that they're getting one of their role players into the game that wasn't a really important factor in game 1, but. It just did not play out that way. The Timberwolves were, incredible from start to finish on the defensive end of the floor. And I think it was just, you talked about it, no Gobert, no problem. And the fact that it was, this Timberwolves team has had a next man up mentality the whole entire season. And I think this game just kind of epitomized that when someone's down, everyone else steps up and plays a lot harder and locks in even more on what they need to do and what the role is. And, they didn't need anybody to be Rudy Gobert. They needed everybody to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that's what we got. And that's the great thing about this Timberwolves team is you want to play small. They can play small. You want to have a defense first lineup out there. They can have an elite defense first lineup out there. You want to have an offensive minded lineup out there. You have Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley kind of orchestrating everything. They can do anything you want, but defensively, the result of that game, I think, again, we talked about it. 80 points is the fewest they've allowed in a game all season. I believe it's the lowest that Denver has scored in a game all season. It's the 4th time in 6 games this season that the Timberwolves have held Denver under 100 points. And most importantly here, the Nuggets, before garbage time got started, and they finished with this too, they had 16 assists and 19 turnovers. First time all season that they have had more turnovers than assists in a game. And you rarely ever see that. in an NBA game. And we'll get into more kind of how the defense went. But yeah, I think that Karl Anthony Towns too, just setting a tone, again, playing exactly the way that he did in that third quarter of game 1 and the third quarter of game 4 of that last series, where he was just really quick and decisive. Every time he caught the ball, he was doing something quick, whether he was putting it on the deck and getting downhill, or whether he was, just getting up threes. It felt like every decision that he made was the right one early in this game. And I think, again, when Karl Anthony Towns gets into a rhythm offensively and how easy he can score in bunches, I think it just opens everything up for guys like Anthony Edwards, for Mike Conley, for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, hell, for Naz Reid to get into the paint, which is super important. And I had written down here, I think it's just the manner in which the Timberwolves went about their business and how relentless they were. Especially defensively. I think how sharp they were offensively for the entire first half is really going to go untalked, kind of underheralded, I guess, with how good their defense was. But I mean, offensively, they were getting good shots every single time down the floor. And when we were all focused on their defense, but I think when you wear a team out defensively like that, they don't want to go back and guard on the other end of the floor. The Timberwolves are one of the rare teams in the NBA where when they get in a hole, they don't try to make it back with Michael Porter Jr. really bad transition 3-point shots, or, hunting to try to get up as many threes as you can to try to turn the game into a math equation. They just really dig in defensively, and the Nuggets didn't want to do that at all. I had written down here, it is 11:47 p.m. here in Minneapolis. I had the time of death at 9:57 p.m. Central Time. 54-30 at the 3:24 mark of the second quarter. Up to this point, this is what I had written down. All the Nuggets did was complain, not compete. Malone called a timeout to just berate the ref, Mark Davis, and didn't get a technical, which I thought was hilarious and awesome at the same time. Right before this, you had Jamal Murray throwing up the Rudy Gobert money signs at the refs, and then threw a heating pack from the bench onto the court, which is just it's amateur hour. I mean, there's no place for that in the NBA. Jokic started getting overly physical with his arms. You can just kind of tell. It's kind of like when, we talked about this a little bit with Nurkic in the last years, where Nurkic would just get really aggressive and kind of just start flying his arms around everywhere. So he started doing that. And then you just got super loud, "Let's go Wolves" chants before halftime in Denver. And for them to be up as many as they were, I think they're up like 27 at one point in the first half. And the Nuggets to get booed off of their home floor entering halftime. This is the second team that the Wolves have done this to, where they've won both of the games on the road, and they've had a team, their opponent, booed off the court by their home fans before halftime is even here. It's just incredible what they were able to do. And then you talked about it, just really quick in the first half of this game for the Stars. Jokic and Jamal Murray had a combined 10 points on 4 of 18 shooting with 5 turnovers. They had more turnovers than made shots. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves in the first half of this game, for those guys to play the way that they did, outscore the Nuggets 36-35. Cat had 20, Ant had 16 in the first half of this game. For the two of them to combine for 36 points and 14 of 20 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, was incredible. And the great part about that offensive effort is they were doing it without turning the ball over. The Timberwolves had just 3 turnovers at halftime, and Denver had 0 points off of those turnovers. And that was something that we saw in the last game, where I think the Nuggets had 26 points off of 14 Wolves turnovers. And so for the Wolves Stars to be as efficient as they were and aggressive as they were without turning the ball over only bodes well. And I mean, I think we're seeing now, we thought that Aaron Gordon would be able to defend Karl Anthony Towns, at least to some level, but it really is starting to feel now like the Nuggets have zero answer for Anthony Edwards, and they also have zero answer for Karl Anthony Towns, because not only is he, shooting threes over the top of Nikola Jokic or shooting threes over Aaron Gordon, but he's blowing by Aaron Gordon. I mean, we talked about after game 1 how Ant liked to drag Aaron Gordon out on the perimeter and just really blow by him and make him flip his hips and slide his feet. And he can't do that. But for him to get blown by Karl Anthony Towns, coming off a meniscus injury in his left knee, that's a tough sign for Denver. And that's before you even get into the fact that they in the second half were really picking on Jamal Murray, obviously with the left calf strain. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope sprained both of his ankles in the last series. It's really scary right now for the Nuggets. And I said it after 2 games on the basketball party in the in the Phoenix series that series was over, and that you could grab your brooms out and you could see a team that had quit. And I'll tell you what, Luke, I cannot believe I'm saying this about a Denver Nuggets team that I have an immense amount of respect for, but I saw them quit in the first half. I saw them quit.
It was one thing to watch Phoenix quit the way they did, but bro, to watch after 6 quarters, it only took 6 quarters, bro, 6 quarters, and like you said, time of death. That second quarter, late in that second quarter, they quit.
And just one last thing there, like I think the manner in which they're quitting is louder, and more embarrassing than the way that the Suns did, in the sense that, you know, Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant weren't losing their minds crying at the refs. Nikola Jokic is screaming at the refs until he's blue in the face. Aaron Gordon gets teed up. Michael Malone calls a timeout just to go and, you know, just destroy the ref verbally, get right in his face, scream in his face, spit in his face. And then Jamal Murray is crying the whole entire first half. And it's one of my favorite things about the Timberwolves defense is that all these players are crying for the refs, looking for fouls that they, you know, think that they should be entitled to, because they're not used to seeing a team that plays defense like the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are relentless. They only grow stronger with each stop. You see Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker grinning from ear to ear as they're playing defense. It's just a sight to behold, man. And tonight was a night I think Timberwolves fans will remember for a long, long, long time.
Top to bottom, start to finish. Try to let's not be a prisoner of the moment here. Let the dust settle. Think about it here long term. Was that one of the best first halves of basketball you've ever seen play out? Not just in Wolves franchise history, but in NBA history throughout the archives of time? Because I was absolutely stunned, like I know a lot of people were.
I think defensively, yes, no question about it. I think offensively, when you think about that 2017 Warriors team that had Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, they had some incredible first halves where they won first halves by like 40 points. So I think that is probably the pinnacle for me of what I've personally seen with my own 2 eyes. But in terms of defense, I think that was one of the best defensive halves in the history of basketball when you consider the circumstances on the road without the guy that's now going to tie the NBA record for most defensive player of the year awards in a career with 4, and Rudy Gobert. And you still don't skip a beat and prove that you can be even better when you lose your best defensive player. And that's not a slight at all to Rudy.
Of course,
I think if anything, it's a positive for Rudy, in that Rudy's helped instill a culture of just a bunch of dogs off the leash. And it is scary when all those dogs just start swarming you, and they sense fear. And when they sense fear, it's a wrap. And I think, again, I'll call it right now. Time of death, 11:53. This series is over. I really don't think the Nuggets are going to win a game in Denver or in Minneapolis. I think the Wolves are going to be 8-0. I mean, it's Murray's hurt. KCP's hurt. Jokic can't do it. Ant's been the best player on the floor. Karl-Anthony Towns was better than Jokic tonight. I mean, if the Wolves have 2 players, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was better than Jokic tonight. If you have 3 players on your team that are playing better than the other team's best player, and you just got booed off your home court, you lost by 26 at home in game 2. I mean, what more do we need to see? You know?
No, I get it. I totally get it. I know it. And now you think about this Nuggets team. I mean, they were so frustrated, man. They were so in their head in this one. Now they have to sit on this game, this performance, for another 3 full days, 3.5 days, pretty much. They don't get to play and kind of try to exercise these demons, shake out all that bad mojo until Friday night. Oh boy, that's going to be a long week for sure. You kind of touched on it here just real quick. I know we got to keep moving on to segment 2, but you think about, okay, no Rudy for this game. All right, brutal. But that bench, man, I mean, everybody knows the Wolves bench is one of the best in the biz this year. I get that. But can you just real quick, 60 seconds or less, break down just how special, how unique it is to have guys like Naz Reid and not come off the bench and make the impact they do on both ends of the court? Because it just doesn't get old to watch here, Jack. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the best bench duo in the NBA playoffs, no question about it. I don't think there's a bench duo that even comes close to what those guys can do. I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker might be the best defensive bench player that's out there right now. I think I think Naz Reid might be the best offensive bench player that's out there right now.
Man.
And you want to know just how unique they are. They became the first pair of teammates off the bench to at least have 3 blocks and 3 made threes in the same game in NBA history.
That's
And
unbelievable.
they did it in the playoffs on the road when role players normally don't play as well. And they both had 14 points. They both made 4 threes. They were a combined 8 of 15 from 3, and they combined for 11 rebounds and 7 blocks. I don't know what more you could ask from them. And Nikhil was plus 11. Naz was plus 9. I legitimately do not know what more you could ask from those guys. And Naz, hilariously, was 1 of 6 from inside the arc. And if Naz Reid, who's an amazing finisher in his own right, is struggling to finish inside the arc, and he still has 14 points. I mean, before the fourth quarter of game 1, Naz Reid's playoff career high was 13 points. He had 14 points in the fourth quarter of game 1. He has 14 points again tonight. So he would have broken that record twice in a row. Now that he's rolling, you got to feel really good about the Timberwolves here, not just for the rest of this series, but for the rest of the playoffs.
Absolute masterclass, top to bottom. So fun to watch if you're a T-Wolves fan, that's for sure. Plenty more deep dive on this Wolves game 2 versus Denver. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monopoly Go. Now, I've been told I'm the competitive one in the household, okay? I'm the guy who's always trying to kick things up a notch, create a little friendly competition, if you will. That's exactly why Monopoly Go is perfect, and not just for me, but over 150 million other people that have already downloaded it. It's the new latest and greatest twist on the classic Monopoly we all love and remember, and now you can play on not just one board, but hundreds of Monopoly boards, all with different crazy locations, helping you build up amazing new cities that bring you big money. And best part, without a doubt, messing with your friends and family, charge them rent on all the iconic properties, and you can even steal their vaults of cash. Or you can team up with your friends and earn big rewards. So what are you waiting for? Get in the game, play with all your family, play with all your friends. Download Monopoly Go for free at the App Store and Google Play. All right, I just got to bring this up real quick because I know it's going to be a talker. Jamal Murray, the Heat Pack incident, we'll call it. Never seen anything like it before. Now you got former players, NBA analysts like Glenn Perkins already tweeting out, dude should be suspended for game 3. Just your quick knee-jerk reaction to the maybe dirty, uncalled for move itself, and then what disciplinary action you think the league will take, if any. I'm just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Rudy Gobert got fined $100,000 for flashing the money sign, just flashing the money sign.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, we don't really have a whole lot of precedent for a player throwing something onto the floor like that. I think when you add in the situation of him crying more than Rudy Gobert's newborn baby has today at these refs, and then doing that, Chris Finch called it dangerous, was what he called it in the post game. So I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, Jamal Murray tonight had what did he have? He had 8 points on 3 of 18 shooting, and he had more turnovers than made shots. He had 4 turnovers and 3 made shots.
3 of 8. This should stop there.
Plays.
3 of 18.
Doesn't matter if he plays. I give him all the credit in the world for fighting through what he's been fighting through. He fought through that calf injury, have an unreal game 5 to get them here. No question. He deserves all the credit in the world for that. The guy's a warrior. He's got, a Hall of Fame guard caliber playoff resume, trending in that direction. But for him to do something as Bush League as that is just a really, really tough look, and it's impossible to defend that. And when you got your second best player doing that, you got your best player throwing a tantrum, you got your coach throwing a tantrum, it's just a tough look for a defending champion to do that at home.
We were forced to come on here after game 1 and talk about the refs just for a hot second, if you remember, about the technical on Ann after the stare down. I'm just curious what you thought about the calls, or more so, should I say, the no calls tonight, because there were plenty of moments where it just felt like these refs were letting these guys play. I, for one, loved it, and I'm not just saying that because it worked in our favor tonight specifically. Just your quick thoughts, 30 seconds or less, just on how the refs called this game.
I mean, I don't really care. Whatever you do, call it consistent. I thought they called it consistent. I think it was just a heavyweight fight. They just let them kill each other in there. If you're going to let them kill each other, let them kill each other. If you're going to call everything, call everything. I thought that this crew played it pretty consistent for the majority of the game. maybe we'll see what we saw in game 3 of that series in the last series where they start calling everything. I don't know. Every game's a new game, but the Wolves have proved that no matter how they call it, they can overcome it and, not complain and keep their head down and keep chipping away.
What else caught your eye tonight as far as just what this team did right the most? I get where did they really capitalize and dominate and outplay the Nuggets the most? Maybe even individually speaking. Like I know Karl Anthony Towns, for one, deserves some extra flowers on his performance against Joker specifically to start.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question about it. Karl Anthony Towns in the last series was tasked with taking a bit of a backseat on the offensive end of the floor and giving everything he had to guard Kevin Durant. And the Wolves swept the series. And yeah, sure, Kevin Durant got his for the most part, but Cat did an incredible job of not letting Kevin Durant become a playmaker, forced Kevin Durant to run him off the 3-point line, forced him to take tough contested mid-range jump shots that, over the course of the game, it's an inefficient shot, and the metrics bear that out. And that's a huge reason why the Timberwolves were able to consistently wear down the Suns with defense. He did that while still maintaining excellent efficiency, staying out of foul trouble for the most part, and really just doing whatever the game called for. And then in games 3 and 4 was awesome in the second half offensively in both of those games to help them get over the finish line, if you will. And then in game 1, he held Nikola Jokic to 12 points on 4 of 12 shooting, 4 assists and 4 turnovers while Karl Anthony Towns is guarding. And that's incredible work. And that adds on to Karl having the league best 37.5 field goal percentage allowed to Nikola Jokic since the start of 2022. That is the best by 12%. The next best guy is at 49.6%. So that's before tonight. We don't have the matchup numbers in yet, so we don't know. But for Karl Anthony Towns to do that against Kevin Durant, do whatever the team called for, be super cool with them, start closing with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's being a team first guy. And then in this series, he's kind of thrust into really being, more of a co-Batman than a Robin, if you will, with how much they need him offensively. And what has he done? I mean, he's, tonight has 27 points on 10 of 15 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 12 rebounds, 3 stocks and an assist. And he has 2 turnovers. I mean, the guy is playing incredible basketball. He's playing super efficient. I mean, over the course of the playoffs, he's averaging 21 points a game on 70.1% true shooting, 54% from 3, 9 rebounds, 2.3 assists per game. And the Wolves are 6-0. I mean, he's pretty much erased any possible doubt about, his playoff resume so far in these 6 games. And he may not even be halfway done with his 2024 playoffs. I think people really need to stop thinking that Cat is just some soft guy that doesn't get it done. I mean, you have to go look at the rosters that he played with over his time in Minnesota. The NBA is way too talented for someone not named LeBron James to just drag a team to the playoffs and have success in the playoffs. It is literally impossible to do that in the NBA, in today's NBA. And then beyond Karl Anthony Towns, you have Kyle Anderson, who steps in for Rudy Gobert tonight, who is incredible in this game. Kyle Anderson had 6 points on 3 of 8 shots. He took 6 of those in the first quarter, I believe. He just came in and started chucking a little bit too much, but had 9 rebounds. 7 of them were offensive rebounds. Pretty impressive stat there. And then 8 assists to just 2 turnovers, 2 steals, 1 block. I thought the way that Kyle Anderson set screens the floor and then was able to kick the ball out to corner shooters, kick the ball out to the slot, hit cutters, back the ball out and flow into something else if nothing was there. I thought that he played every note perfectly and that the Nuggets like to switch every screen that does not involve Nikola Jokic. And Nikola Jokic was guarding Kyle Anderson in this game. So you'd think, you want Kyle Anderson setting more screens so that Karl Anthony Towns isn't setting screens, potentially setting illegal ones, getting into foul trouble. And so what the Wolves started to do is they started to set off-ball screens for Kyle Anderson to get Jokic off of Kyle Anderson so that when Kyle Anderson would come to set a screen, he would be in the middle of the floor with Jokic in a drop defense. And Jokic is a terrible rim defender, especially in the playoffs so far. He's been really underwhelming. He's definitely improved.
Has that always been like that? Does that surprise you? Is that always been like that? I mean,
he mostly plays up at the level of the screen, and he's more aggressive because he's a good defensive playmaker, out in space rather than defending the rim. But Kyle Anderson, I like him going downhill against Nikola Jokic, waiting for him in the paint. I mean, Kyle's a good finisher, but Kyle's a really, really good passer. And at 6'9", he can throw any pass over the top of the defense, and he just carved up the Nuggets defense. And it's again, the Wolves late in the third quarter of game 1 took Rudy Gobert off the floor, put Kyle Anderson in there so that he could play the 5 and he could just kind of be, that guy that sets a bunch of screens, gets the ball in the middle of the floor. And then, you've got 4 shooters around Kyle Anderson, who's also more than capable, pretty much unlike Rudy Gobert, of putting the ball on the deck and then finishing. So he just unlocks so much. But I think the caveat there is he has to play with only one of Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert. And they did that obviously tonight with no Rudy. And that's why you see Kyle Anderson find so much more success, which I think was awesome. And then you just want to look at some key areas here. I mean, Minnesota before garbage time, bench scoring was 34 to 18, excuse me. And Justin Holiday had 13 points on 4 or 5 shooting from beyond the arc. Like, that's probably the best game he's going to have in this whole series. And the Wolves bench still just dominated the Nuggets. I mean, Christian Brown only 11 minutes. Reggie Jackson only 10 minutes. Had 3 points on 1 of 6 shooting. His only 3 came right at the start of the third quarter, I believe. So, there's just not a whole lot going for Denver. And if you're getting really good games from Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Naz Reid in the same game, like if I told you Jaden McDaniels would have 5 points through games 1 and game 2, yet somehow be a plus 40 through 2 games, you would probably think I was on drugs.
Right. There's no way. Yeah,
I am high on a drug right now, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves defense. No question about it. But
again, Jack, it was one thing to do all those same things against a Phoenix team. It's a whole nother animal doing against this Denver team. So 6 playoff games we've watched now, Jack. Wolves haven't lost a game. They're 6-0. What kind of message are they putting out there to the rest of the league right now when you try to summarize these last 6 games? Like, what's the number one takeaway as far as the identity, the makeup, and the ceiling of this Wolves team?
I think, it starts, you've got to have a megastar. If you want to go far, you've got to have a megastar.
So
you can't
true.
just have a team that's really deep and then have maybe a couple of 1Bs or a couple of 2s. The Wolves may have the best player left in the playoffs. I mean, Ant has thoroughly outplayed Nikola Jokic in this series through 2 games. And Nikola Jokic is really the only undisputed guy coming into this that you maybe thought was better than Ant. And so you start there. So they've got that box checked. And then do they have a clearly defined number 2 scoring option that they can go to if Ant's not playing well, or, the need to have a lead dominant scorer out there on the floor if Ant's on the bench? Yes, they do. And Karl Anthony Towns, we've been over this, how efficient he's been. And then you think about defensive lineups and versatility that they have. They have a defensive quartet of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert. That is the best defensive quartet that is left in the playoffs by a mile. They can play any which way. They can play small with Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels at the 4, and Gobert or Towns at the 5. We saw them close with, those lineups with either big in there in games 3 and 4, and did it with a lot of success. And then you have guys off the bench that if someone gets in foul trouble, you can go to any of Naz, Nickeil, or Kyle Anderson. And then if Mike Conley gets in foul trouble, who do you have off the bench? You have Monte Morris, who's one of the most sure-handed point guards in the entire NBA. And then you have Jordan McLaughlin waiting in the wings now if Monte Morris's finger injury is more than just a done for the rest of this game injury, who played in the rotation for pretty much the whole year. I mean, they have the star power, they have the depth, they have the versatility that you need. They have a coaching staff that has proven themselves. They've proven that they can win on the road. They're 4-0 on the road, which is crazy. And they're not scared of anybody. I mean, and you think about all the teams that they could play, I'm pretty sure that they've won on the road against all the other rest of the teams that they could potentially play. And maybe they didn't beat Boston, but that game where they traveled to Boston the day of the game, they didn't have Mike Conley. I don't think they had
they didn't have
Gobert either.
Conley or Gobert, and the plane left at 3 a.m.
They went to overtime.
What do you want?
The plane left at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. and they got there at 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon. I mean, it's just, they check every single box that you need. And they have a point guard too. That's the other really important thing that, I think maybe the Celtics don't have, is you could say, oh, Drew Holiday's a point guard. Yeah, he's not really a point guard. He's more of a combo guard.
Right.
So, I mean, in terms of their ceiling, what we've seen right now, they've thoroughly been the best team in the playoffs so far. There's no question about that. And their ceiling is really, I think it's up to them how far they want to go. If they want to keep this thing rolling and keep buying in and keep playing at this level on both ends of the floor, they not only have this elite defense, but they have had the best offense in the NBA in the playoffs. And they were ranked 17th in the regular season.
Number one, right? On both sides of the ball in this
Yep,
playoffs.
correct.
Right?
And so for them to prove it in all 4 quarters, really, they proved that they could get out to fast starts in all these games. They proved that they could sustain it in the second quarter. In this case, in tonight's second quarter, really run up the score to a point where it's over. And then in the third quarter, they've been the best third quarter team in the NBA in the playoffs. And then in the fourth quarter, they've proven in game 4 on the road against the Suns that they could out execute, 3 guys who are Hall of Fame caliber scorers. Obviously, Booker and Beal probably won't be in the Hall of Fame, but they're that good of scorers. And then to out execute probably the best clutch time team we've seen in, the better part of a decade in this Denver Nuggets team. I understand they're not fully healthy, but to do that at altitude in Denver, not once, but twice in a row, is just incredible. So I don't really know what's on their resume that has you thinking this team can't win a title, or this team shouldn't be the team that represents the Western Conference in the Western in the NBA Finals. And obviously, I know that they have a series that they have to play if they lock up this series, but it's scary.
They've checked all the boxes here, Jed. They've checked every single box. The only thing standing in Minnesota sports fans' way right now is the PTSD. We're just hardwired to expect something bad. It's got to happen eventually here, right? But honestly, that just doesn't feel like the case right now. Happened
today. Rudy Gobert couldn't come to Denver. He was ready to come. He couldn't come to Denver because there were wind gusts up to 80 miles an hour in the Denver area today that canceled hundreds of flights in and out of Denver, the 3 Denver airports. And that was the reason why he couldn't get to Minneapolis or get to Denver. And they didn't even need it. I mean, that was the shoe that dropped, right? And
that was it. That was supposed to be it. It didn't matter. All right, couple minutes left. We got to fly through segment 3. We got to preview game 3 Friday night. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what also keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, eBay Motors, they got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Check this out. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, buddy, we got about 60 seconds left. I ask you this after every game, so I'm not going to stop now. Best play or best moment from game 2 tonight was what? Like, what's one thing you'll always remember from game 2 when we look back at this series?
I don't know.
It's too many to pick from? Too many to choose?
There's too many defensive plays where I was trying to tweet something, and then there were 4 more great defensive plays that happened.
Yeah.
I think it was just the collective, there's that meme or the gif of the guy screaming, more. Like, that's just how we all felt, wanting more of this.
That was it.
I think it's almost just like a blackout moment where nothing jumps out to you because there were so many incredible.
It all kind of blended together,
plays.
Didn't it? It all blended together for an entire quarter, though. That second quarter was absolutely nuts. Couple injury updates real quick. We got to touch on specifically Ant with the shoulder sprain or tweak, I guess. Monte Morris left with a finger sprain, I believe. Now, I know we've got a full week to rest up, which is huge, but when you saw both those play out the way they did, what's your early thoughts on maybe the severity and also how they could potentially affect game 3 Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, Reggie Jackson sprained his left ankle pretty bad to a point where he's in a walking boot and crutches. I think after game 3 of that Nuggets series or that Lakers series. So they called it left calf tightness, but it was still that same leg that he injured. So that's a bummer. Ant's shoulder obviously seems okay. And then Monte Morris, I mean, the finger sprain, they were probably pretty quick to rule him out because they knew he probably wasn't going to be coming back in the game anyways. At that point, he was ruled out in the fourth quarter. So, we'll see what happens with that one. But again, the good news is you got 3 days off here. I don't know if the team's traveling back to Minneapolis tonight. I'd be surprised given all the wind advisories that are out there in Denver, but we'll see. So yeah, I mean, certainly a blow to the Nuggets if they're, PG1 and PG2 are both pretty compromised right now because they do not have a third point guard on this roster. So.
Great stuff, my man. We got to roll. Unfortunately, I could talk NBA. I could talk Wolves with you literally all night long. You're an elite NBA mind. T-Wolves steamroll Denver. They head back home up 2-0. Cat with 27 tonight. Ant with 27 tonight. Nas and Na with 14. And just, again, a defensive performance for the ages. 3 days off in a row now to ice up. Get ready for Game 3 Friday. Tip off for that one. 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time in the backyard at the Target Center. As always, huge shout out to all you guys that joined us on the stream. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. And quick reminder, got to go check out all of Jack's work on X. He's always ripping it up at JR Borman 13. And make sure you check him out and the entire crew on the Minnesota basketball party. That's each and every Wednesday afternoon. Not to mention, we got our guy, Ben Beacon, always killing it over at the Locked On Wolves podcast each and every day as well. All right, that'll do it for us tonight. That's Jack. I'm Luke. We'll see you for Game 3. But until then, signing out.